At the family gift exchange, my daughter opened a used puzzle box with half the pieces missing. Her cousins were opening new iPhones. My parents laughed and said, "Well, she's too young to care." I stood, walked to my car, and showed them the gifts. Their faces turned pale. Mom begged them not to go. Dad yelled, "But—" We always did Christmas at my parents' place. Big tree, too many lights, wine, and coffee mugs by noon. And this kind of fake joy that everyone wore like a costume. I used to buy into it because that's what you do. You keep the peace. You smile. You brush things off. But this year was different. My older daughter, Lexi, was spending the holidays out of state. PM Ed couldn't make it back. So it was just me and my younger one, Sophie, who's 6. I had already dropped over $2,000 on gifts for everyone. Designer handbags, a rare bourbon for my dad, even a vintage record player for my sister's fiancé. I own a flower business and had a good year. Thought I'd make it special. We walked in with armfuls of beautifully wrapped presents and left them under the tree. I made a plate for Sophie, found her a spot by the fireplace with the other kids, and tried to relax. Everything was loud. The blender, the yelling, the clinking of glasses. My sister was showing off her new Chanel boots. Her husband was FaceTiming from a ski lodge in Aspen. My mom was loudly commenting on how I still hadn't remarried. Then the gift exchange started. The kids went first, like always. My niece tore into a brand new iPhone and shrieked. My nephew got a Nintendo Switch. Another cousin pulled out some expensive Beats headphones. One by one, squeals and flashes of packaging. My daughter opened hers. A battered puzzle box, half of it taped up like it had been in someone's attic for 15 years. No ribbon, no tag. She looked confused and turned it over. Half the pieces were gone. I stared at it for a second, not quite believing what I was seeing. My mom and dad were chuckling. My dad waved it off like it was a joke and said, "Well, she's too young to care anyway." Sophie looked up at me. She didn't cry. That made it worse. I stood up and told her to grab her coat. Nobody reacted at first, too busy filming themselves or pouring more wine. We walked out in silence. I popped the trunk and started pulling out the gifts I had brought, the Louis Vuitton tote I had picked for my mom, the mulberry crossbody for my sister, the custom whiskey box with my dad's name engraved. I walked back in and laid everything on the kitchen island. Nobody said a word until my mom saw the tags. She reached for the tote. I pulled it back. "These were your gifts," I said, "but if this is how you treat my daughter, you don't deserve them." My mom's face drained of color. My sister tried to laugh it off. My dad told me to stop being dramatic, but I walked out, put the gifts back in the car, and drove away. The messages started 5 minutes later. Then the calls. First my mom, then my dad, then my sister, each more furious than the last. I didn't answer any of them. I was just getting started. By the time I got home, I had 11 missed calls and 4 voicemails. 2 from my mom, 1 from my dad, and 1 from my sister. All variations of, "Are you serious right now?" and "You're being immature," and "You ruined Christmas." Not one message mentioned Sophie. Not one asked if she was okay. I didn't respond. Instead, I helped her out of her coat, put on her favorite cartoon, and microwaved some leftover mac and cheese. We opened the little gifts I had saved for her, a dollhouse tea set, some glitter markers, a new pair of light-up sneakers. She didn't say anything about the puzzle box, but she didn't ask to go back either. The next day, I shipped Lexi her Christmas box and emailed the local shelter to donate the luxury bags. It felt better than I expected. By New Year's, the silence had turned to bitterness. My sister posted some long, dramatic caption about how family is everything and how selfish people always show their true colors. Eventually, the comments were all from my aunts and cousins, vague jabs that were clearly meant for me. I didn't take the bait. Then the real shift started. My dad sent a text asking if we were still good for Valentine's orders. I ignored it. My flower business had become a staple for half their town. Weddings, birthdays, funerals. For years, I'd given them family discounts and rushed orders. But they weren't family anymore, at least not the kind that mattered. He sent another message a few days later. "I need to confirm your pricing for the gala centerpieces." I left it on red. Mom showed up at my shop 2 weeks later. She walked in like she owned the place, talking loud, saying how dramatic everything had gotten and how it was time to move on. Sophie was there, sitting quietly at the back table with her coloring book. When my mom finally noticed her, she gave her this awkward fake hug, like she was touching something cold. I didn't say a word. I just turned the sign to closed and waited. Mom sighed and said, Don't throw away everything over a misunderstanding. I told her it wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a choice, hers. She didn't like that. A week later, my sister posted that she was looking for a new florist because, quote, some people let personal drama ruin professionalism. The comments were full of sympathy. One of them even joked about the puzzle box. That one stung more than I wanted it to. I started thinking then, maybe taking the gifts back wasn't enough. Maybe they needed to feel it deeper. They always thought I was soft, that I'd cave, that I needed them more than they needed me. They were wrong. By the time Valentine's week rolled around, my inbox was full of familiar names pretending nothing had ever happened. 3 separate emails from my dad, one asking if I could still handle the fundraiser centerpieces, another asking about discounted bouquets for a colleague's wedding, and a third, longer one about forgiveness and keeping business and emotions separate. All signed like we were still partners. I didn't respond, not to a single one. Instead, I sent the fundraiser job to a newer florist downtown who had just opened up, a young girl with hustle and no ties to anyone. I even threw in a few of my supplier contacts. She texted me after, nearly in tears, because it had been her biggest gig so far. That meant more to me than any family thank you ever had. But the silence from me must have rattled them, because the tone shifted fast. First, my mom dropped by the shop again. No warning, just barged in while I was sorting a delivery. She was overly cheerful, asking about Sophie, complimenting the window display like we were best friends. Then she got to the point. She said she wanted to smooth things over because Easter was coming up and people would be expecting something special. She actually used the word expecting. I told her I had no intention of doing flowers for any more family events. She blinked a few times, confused, like she hadn't realized I was serious until that exact second. She said, "This is your livelihood. Don't be stupid." I just walked to the back and closed the door behind me. The next day, my sister posted a rant on Facebook about how some people love to play victim when they're actually the bully. She didn't tag me. She didn't have to. Our mutual relatives flooded the comments with likes and vague heart emojis. Then came the kicker. I got an automated alert from my accountant. My dad had tried to access a shared business account he hadn't touched in over a year, one I had nearly forgotten still existed. Just a remnant from when I first started the shop and had needed their initial backing. A small account, but it was still under the family LLC name. That was the final straw. I called my lawyer the same day, told him I wanted them removed from everything. Ownership, naming rights, accounts, all of it. I didn't care what it cost. He said it would take a few weeks, maybe a month max. I told him to start immediately. I wanted it clean. No drama, just silence. It felt like flipping the last switch. No more ties, no more favors. No more being the one who kept the peace because I didn't want to cause waves. They had treated my daughter like a charity case and expected me to serve dessert afterward. So now they could serve themselves. My dad must have figured something was up because the emails changed tone again. He stopped asking for things and started warning me. "You're making a mistake. Let's not ruin decades of work over one day. You'll regret this." I didn't answer. I didn't even open the last one. I just moved it straight to trash and stood in my empty shop, breathing in the faint smell of fresh eucalyptus. I hadn't ruined anything. I was finally fixing it. The paperwork went through faster than I thought. My lawyer called on a Thursday morning and said it was official. My parents were no longer listed anywhere on my business documents, not as partners, not as silent investors, not even as emergency contacts. It felt anticlimactic at first, like I expected thunder and lightning or some kind of internal fireworks. Instead, I just looked at the signed PDF on my screen, made a fresh pot of coffee, and got back to filling Valentine's orders. Business had doubled since Christmas. People were talking, in a good way. My arrangements had ended up in 2 local magazines without me even knowing. One bride wrote a blog post calling my flowers revenge bouquets. I didn't mind the label. Then came the first explosion. I got a call from the hotel downtown where my parents had been hosting events for years. Anniversaries, auctions, their Rotary Club parties. The events manager, who I'd worked with for over a decade, sounded shaken. She asked if I was still doing the annual gala flowers. I said no. My dad hadn't booked anything. She paused, then said they assumed it was a standing contract. It's in 2 days. Turns out my dad had told the entire board I was handling the flowers. Never confirmed with me. Never paid the deposit. Probably assumed I'd just show up like I always did. I didn't. The photos from the event surfaced later. Plastic centerpieces, half the tables bare. My dad's name was dragged all over the comments on the local chamber's Facebook post. Apparently one of the board members' wives said, "If he can't even get flowers, how's he running this town?" It was petty, but I took a screenshot. By the following week, I noticed they'd blocked me. Not unfriended, blocked. A day later, my sister's fiance's mom came by the shop. She looked embarrassed, like she didn't want to be seen. She said she was planning a shower and needed someone reliable. She didn't even try to pretend she wasn't related to the drama. She just said, "I know it's been messy, but your work is too good to ignore. I booked it. Full price, no discounts." I made sure to include a little card that read, "Handled with care." My mom started calling Sophie's school. After that, I got an email from the front desk saying that Grandma had been trying to update the pickup list. I had them lock everything down. When I called the school myself, they said she claimed it was a family emergency. I nearly laughed. Then came the most unexpected thing. Lexi called me one night from campus and said Grandpa had reached out to her friend, not her roommate. He offered her $500 to convince Lexi to come home for Easter. I asked if she was okay. She said, "Yeah, but it's creepy." Mom, that was new. They used to act like Lexi didn't even exist when she came out. Now suddenly she was a bargaining chip. I told her not to respond. She said she wouldn't. Then she said something else I didn't expect. "I'm proud of you, for not crawling back." I didn't say anything for a second. I didn't need to, because that's when I knew it was working. The dust I was sweeping out of my life was finally starting to choke them, and I was just getting started. It didn't come crashing down all at once. It unraveled. At first, it was little things. Quiet, easy to miss shifts. One of my biggest corporate clients casually mentioned she was no longer attending the city's spring charity auction. She said the organizing committee had turned into a circus. I asked why. She hesitated, then said something about my dad blowing up at someone during a planning session over flowers. Apparently, that was the first thread. I started hearing more. A caterer I'd worked with for years told me my parents were blacklisted from a popular wedding venue after trying to pressure the owner into giving them family priority. I guess they assumed everyone owed them something, like I used to. But the venue owner didn't bite, told them no. Word spread fast after that. My mom tried to save face by pivoting. She suddenly became obsessed with hosting small gatherings at home, trying to bring her circle in closer. A few people showed up. Most didn't. I saw a picture from one of those nights. Her table centerpiece was a sad little bundle of carnations shoved in a mason jar. I didn't laugh. I just stared at it for a long time. They started calling Sophie's school again, this time asking if they could send cupcakes for a belated birthday treat. I said no. I told the office I didn't want them contacting the school again. The principal agreed, said it was starting to seem invasive. A few days later, Lexi called. She sounded tired but sharp. She said, "Grandpa messaged my friend again, a different one. Said he wanted to remind her what family loyalty looks like." Lexi blocked him. Then she told her friend to block him too. That shook me more than I let on. Not because I was surprised, but because they were still trying to use the same old tricks, as if none of us had grown. Then the letter showed up, typed, formal, folded neatly and slid under my shop door like a warning. 2 pages of fake warmth and carefully arranged guilt. It was from my mom, of course. She said she regretted how things had unfolded, that she never intended to cause harm, that Sophie was too young to remember anyway. And then came the part that made me fold the letter in half and just stare at the wall. "You've made your point, Veronica, but this is your blood. You don't abandon blood." They still didn't get it. This wasn't about making a point. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about peace. It was about standing between my daughters and the same poison I had let into my life for far too long. I didn't respond. But that week, something unexpected happened. A florist friend from another city messaged me, said she'd gotten an inquiry from someone using my parents' names. They were trying to book a full floral package for a country club dinner under a fake business name. She recognized the address, forwarded it to me, asking if it was a scam. I told her the truth. My parents had started using aliases to try and book events because no one would take their calls anymore under their real names. That's how far they'd fallen. Meanwhile, Sophie and I planted a small herb garden behind the shop. Just basil, rosemary, lavender. Nothing big, but she named each plant. Laughed when the soil got under her nails. I caught myself smiling without realizing it. Their world was shrinking, their influence dissolving. Mine was finally beginning to feel like my own. I kept thinking there would be this moment. Something final. A phone call, maybe. Or an apology that felt real. Or even a meltdown. But it didn't happen like that. There was no dramatic ending for them. Just erosion. By June, word had gotten around. Not from me. I kept my head down, my hands busy, my shop full. But people talk. The kind of people who show up at all the same fundraisers and brunches and know exactly who got snubbed and who's suddenly no longer on the guest list. I heard through a customer that my dad lost his seat on the historical board. Something about unprofessional behavior. Someone else mentioned that my mom had been quietly cut from the church flower committee she used to rule over like a queen. They were polite about it, said they were going in a new direction. But I knew the truth. People were done with them. Even their friends, the ones who used to drink wine with my mom while laughing at other people's family problems, started pulling away. No one wants to associate with bitterness once it starts to stink. And theirs reeked of desperation. They tried one last time in July. I got another letter, handwritten this time. The envelope was smudged inside my mom's handwriting, stiff and controlled. She said she was sorry things got out of hand. Said she missed how close we used to be. Said Sophie probably didn't even remember the puzzle by now. She still didn't get it. I read it once, folded it, and tucked it into a drawer with the rest. I wasn't keeping it out of sentiment. I just wanted to remember someday how long it took her to never say the words that mattered. Then silence. Complete. Total. They stopped calling. Stopped writing. Stopped trying to claw their way back in. And I didn't miss them. That same month, I signed the lease for a second shop. Smaller, more curated, just around the corner from a new cafe that let me host Sunday workshops. I started teaching little classes, floral basics, DIY bouquets, garden therapy for kids. Sophie helped me name each session. Lexi helped me build the website. We printed little cards for each customer. On the back, they said, "Grow where you're no longer tolerated, but celebrated." People started collecting them. Sometimes I still get questions. People who used to know us, asking why my parents aren't at the events anymore, why my sister deleted her wedding page, why my family seems different now. I always smile, because I know what they really want to ask is what happened. And the answer is simple. They handed my daughter a used puzzle box while her cousins opened iPhones. Then they laughed. They never thought I'd walk away. They definitely never thought I'd stay gone. But I did. And I didn't just leave. I took back everything. My business, my peace, my name. Their names are no longer spoken in my shop. Not in whispers, not in jokes, not at all. And that's what real revenge looks like. Not burning bridges, but letting them rot on the other side while you build something beautiful in the quiet. Without them.